Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Parents and Child Minecraft series. Today, we will talk a little bit about how the storage system is set up and how we manage to keep our spending in our budget. So, as you are aware, we had some hardware issues and had to replace our main PC, which means that we have a pretty standard PC now, which we bought in a fire on a fire sale, and it was a leasing machine which has obviously been returned. It's a Dell Optiplex 5070, and we managed to get some RAM for it, so it runs on 40 gigabyte of RAM, and we bought also a SSD hard disk for it with 2 terabytes of space, so that we have enough space for editing. But as you can see, even the 2 terabyte are reaching its capacity now, and we needed to set up a backup server which will take all the files which we don't actually need at the moment and put them into storage. So, things being what they are at the moment, it is not even very pricey to get, not only very pricey to get graphics cards, it's also pretty pricey to get decent hardware in any compartment of the market. So what we were looking for initially was hard disks for our Generation 8 server. So we have 2.5 inches hard disks because we can fit 8 2.5 compared to the 4 we could fit in the same model if we would take 3.5 inches. So that makes the choice a little bit narrowed down, because 2.5 inches hard disks are harder to come by if you have an SAS controller in them, as we have. But why having an SAS controller and SAS disks anyway, if you can buy SSDs for much cheaper now than they used to be? So we paid about £160 for the 2 terabyte of SSD disks. So there are two factors in place. We have a gigabit network, which means our theoretical transfer speed over the net is limited to a maximum of 125 megabytes per second. That is all you will get if you have a gigabyte network. And the Opteron only has one network socket, so we will be limited to 125 megabytes per second transfer rate from one machine to the other, whatever hard disk we build in. And still, as you will hear, if you go and extend your hard disk capacity, you will find out that even when you want to have 8 terabyte of hard disk capacity, you don't want to spend £800 for 4 SSDs, which you can't use anyway because your maximum transfer speed will be 125 megabytes anyway. So what we did is we bought refurbished SAS disks, 10 of them for £170, each 1 terabyte capacity. So what that means, we have 8 terabyte of storage space now for £170. And as you can see, the transfer rate between the PC and the server is roundabout between 60 and 80 megabytes per second, which is a pretty good rate when it comes to transfer from machine to machine, because to achieve the maximum transfer speed you have to have the optimum configuration. The disks need to be very fast, and you need also have a pretty low number of machines running in your network. And as we have a lot running on our network, the transfer speed from one machine to the other will be a little bit lower than the maximum of 125 anyway. So what is that you have to look out for? Okay, first of all, when you install your Ubuntu and you don't have all your hard disks, or you're planning to extend your capacity later on, install it on a whole LVM installation so that you can always extend the size of your disks without the need to install everything again, or without the need of setting up a different hard disk. The beauty of the LVM installation is that you can always extend or shrink your disk size. So the ideal configuration is having 3 machines running so that you can always install hard disks. They will become cheaper over time, so you can install hard disks, increase your capacity, and then add those disks to your existing LVM. So what you see here now is we have the 4 terabytes added to our 4 terabyte. We had initially in our server, and those 4 terabytes, as I said, had cost us the grand total of 68 pounds. So compared to 4 terabytes on an SSD for 400 pounds, that is a pretty decent price. And I mean, you can see here we have 60 megabytes, we got sometimes 70, it peaks at 80. So that means for to transfer 30 gigabyte, it will take about 88 minutes, and that is, yeah, okayish. So the when you start to install your Minecraft server and you want to use it not only for Minecraft but also as a backup server for all your files, all your movies, your music, and whatever. And I mean, if you're planning to do some video editing or if you're planning to do some music editing, then you will need a load of space anyway. And if you are not willing to fork out 600, 700 pounds for a high-end NAS, then you're most probably ending up buying a used server and install Ubuntu and buy refurbished SAS disks, as they give you a very good performance to price ratio. And another tip is if you have an SAS controller, you want to install something which is, you see here, what we get is we are checking our disks, and if you go with an SAS controller, you will see that you will have problems to identify all of your disks in the system because of the way SCSI works. It's a chain, and unfortunately a lot of the inbuilt system commands only see the first disk in the chain. So what we need is, here you can see it, if we use the hardware checking, then we only find our first disk in the chain. But there is another nice little tool which is called LSSCSI, and that gives you a complete overview of what you have built in. So my advice, if you are setting up a Minecraft server for your child and plan to do it to use it as a backup server, you don't need to spend thousands of pounds. Just go and check all those auction sites and try to buy a decent generation 8 server, you get cheap memory, you get cheap hard disks, and you don't have a proprietary operating system as with many of the NAS systems which are on the market. You can install Ubuntu on your server, you can install your Minecraft, and you can also install cheap hard disks and use them as storage. So what we have is an LVM now with a theoretical capacity of 8 terabyte. I have only used 50% of it. You can see my allocated size is 4.2 terabyte and my free size is still 3.4 terabyte, which I can expand if I feel the need to, or I will just leave it at the moment and then maybe install another virtual machine on it so I can install probably a little bit more security for our network. At the moment it's all running behind a firewall and behind a pretty secure router, but I am thinking about building a complete domain server so that we can run it a lot more secure than it is at the moment. So what So here you see the whole net we have at the moment, the whole net capacity. So we have 3.4 terabyte at our disposal. Okay, so that was the, you see, now we are down to 30 seconds and we are closing in, and we have just transferred more than, I think it was around about 100 terabytes in half an hour. So I can show you how it works. So that is our shared drive. It's the Samba drive, and I have a folder here which is pretty big, 127 gigabyte. And if you've ever transferred 127 gigabyte over the network, you know that it is a pretty daunting task. But you see, it is about 30 minutes time, which is not that bad. And we have a speed of about 66, 67, sometimes 70, sometimes 50 megabytes per second. And that's for 68 quid. and that's not bad. Yeah, and that is the beauty. I mean, you can buy 3 terabyte 3.5 inches discs for 60 quid at the moment, and if you buy SAS refurbished ones, you can get the 3 terabyte for around about 40 quid at the moment. And that is very, 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 very competitive to SSDs, which you won't max out over your gigabyte connection anyway. So, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to. And see you again next time.